Alrighty, so today we got another video coming from the parking lot, and today I want to talk about, I've just been reading up, listening, watching some videos on philosophy a little bit more recently, and it's inspired me to share with you guys, whoever sees this video, some of the things that I feel like have helped me achieve like the next level in my life and really become, better mentally and put me in a position where I feel like I'm building skills that are helping me out in life. And so, not that I want to go into too much stuff and be kind of weird about it. I'm no expert in any of these things and I'm still learning every day. But I just felt like it'd be fun to share some of the things that I feel like have become important to me in the past couple of years of my life. And today, I want to start with optimism. And what I want to say is that it's important and necessary to be optimistic about life, at the very least about yourself. Now, me personally, I try to be optimistic about as many things as possible, but ultimately, I'd be the first person to tell you need to be rational too, right? But what I mean by optimism, and more specifically about yourself, is just about, I personally grew up in a background where we did not have very much money, but I was lucky enough to not grow up in a family that had any family troubles. Like, my family members never, seriously had any issues with each other. And I was lucky enough to grow up in a family that loved me very much, and one that never failed to provide me of things I needed, but often we did not have money to buy things that we wanted, right? But I say that to preface this to say what I was extremely blessed to receive in this lifetime is optimism, because while I may have grown up in that situation, I never felt that I was incapable of doing anything. I never felt that any challenge I set out to achieve, that it was on the outset, before I even started, that it was impossible for me to achieve. And I think part of that is like environment and the great parents I was raised under. But ultimately, I have to say that, what was instilled in me through that was optimism, right? When I went out to start anything in my life, I don't automatically assume that I'm going to fail at it or that I'm going to be bad. Now, have I failed many times in my life? Honestly, I can't get into it in a video because I don't want to, expose certain things in my life to people that don't need to know about it. But I have failed royally and embarrassingly and publicly to a degree that many people have never experienced, multiple times in my life. But it's not about, I could get into growth mindset and all that stuff, but that's another video for another day. But ultimately, what I want to talk about today is optimism, and in the fact that, like, you need to hold this same truth for yourself. I was lucky enough that it was instilled in me as a child. So it's not hard for me to be optimistic because I have a lot of experiences where I was optimistic about something, I put in the work to make it happen, and it worked out the way it was supposed to. I also have experiences where it goes the other way, but because I have these good experiences, I know that, it's a time game. It's not a game of whether or not I'm capable of doing something. It's about whether or not it's worth it for me to do it, whether or not I've put my time and energy in the right place, whether or not I'm ultimately talented in this area, or if I'm going to need help. It's literally, to say something ridiculous to kind of explain what I'm trying to get across here is, like, right now I work for an engineering company as a supply chain data guy, making Power BI dashboards, right? But I personally feel like if I decided tomorrow that I wanted to become an astronaut, that there is literally, as long as I figure out what the specific meaning of that is to me, and go after that, there is literally nothing that would stop me from doing that at some point in my life. Even if, you know, or rather, there's no value in me believing that there's any aspect of life that will hard stop me from achieving that goal. And many people will be like, okay, well, you're not, first of all, you don't know the first thing about whatever would be helpful to somebody that we want to send up in space. You don't have any Air Force or whatever experience that would make you somewhat of an asset if you didn't have any scientific knowledge. And you don't have any connections to the government or to NASA or whatever you would possibly need to even get started on understanding what the process to become an astronaut would be, right? Those things are all true, but especially once you get into, like, I don't know, my profession, I'm a project manager. So, at the beginning of a project, the very first thing you're supposed to do is create what's called a work breakdown structure, where you take a large, lofty, complex problem or project or thing that you're trying to achieve, and you break it down into a tree diagram into its finite aspects until you reach the point where those aspects cannot be broken down anymore, and they're basically actionable tasks, right? Now, if I'm being practical, you could be optimistic rationally by applying this concept to everything that you want to do in your life. If I want to become an astronaut, then I need to take that goal and break it down into the mutually exclusive items that would be required to complete that goal. And then once I check off all those boxes, it's a matter of if I did things correctly, if I've convinced the right people that I'm a good guy for the job, and so on and so forth, right? Now, in real life, things are never that simple. And any project manager will tell you that the adage about, when you create a plan and the first encounter with the enemy, the plan goes out the window. Like that in and of itself is somewhat of a true aspect of life as well. But you will never be, there's no value in telling yourself that you're not able to achieve something. Like, if you try your absolute hardest, right, reach for the stars, you still end up at the moon, right? There's no point in degrading yourself and thinking that you're incapable of doing something. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it's not going to help you in any way. Being pessimistic is not going to help you move forward in any of your goals in life. Ultimately, it's just going to stop you from starting any of the steps that you would need to take to reach your next stage, because you're afraid of the failure that might happen. But as somebody that has failed, like I said, royally and publicly many times in my life, it doesn't matter. Like, when you fail, I don't need to go into stoicism yet, but like, the literal worst thing you could do is to sit there and cry and dwell over your failure and just like shut down and allow it to become this neurotic, self-fulfilling prophecy in your head. Like, this is just such a waste of time. The best thing that you could do is acknowledge what went wrong, try to learn lessons learned from that. What's the thing that this situation, this scenario that I've been put in is trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this adversity that's supposed to make me better off for the future? And once you establish that, move forward. Stop worrying about it, right? But that's kind of a whole nother concept for another day. But my point is that if you want to achieve anything, if you want to exercise your will to its highest potential in this life, to help people, to be a good person, to allow people to depend on you, which I feel like is part of being a man. But it's just like, these things require you to be optimistic about yourself, right? And in turn, the more optimistic you are about yourself, you will find yourself in situations where you are doing things that you otherwise would not have believed that you would have been capable of. And you were basically blocking yourself from doing these things because of your own stupidity or your own pessimisticness, or your own pessimism rather. But anyway, there's no reason to talk about this for too long. I think I've got my point across, but I'd be interested to think what you guys hear in the comments down below. But I truly do think that one of the great blessings in life that I've received is that not money from my parents. Some people call me smart, but I don't really personally believe I'm that smarter than anybody else. And three, that, you know, given those circumstances, the blessing that I have gotten in life is that I was raised in a home where ultimately, even though we had our own struggles as a family growing up, I was taught that I could be optimistic about myself and that that was okay. And that that was probably the better thing for me to do. And that ultimately, that has influenced my life so positively that I can't even put a value on it, you know? Like if you were to tell me that, you know, do I think 50 years from now I'd feel the same way? I have no question that I would feel the same way. If you would tell me if you were homeless on the street doing nothing but panhandling, trying to get your life back, would I feel this way? I promise you, I absolutely would still feel this way. So with that being said, you know, I'm not going to get into anything crazy like the value of free will or, you know, stuff like that. But today, I just want you guys, please, to take from me that one of the most important things for yourself in this life is to be optimistic. You really can achieve anything that you set your mind to that's realistic. And there's no point in beating yourself up, calling yourself names, doing anything negative towards yourself. I mean, unless obviously you deserve it, like it's real feedback, but there's just no point in doing that stuff when it's not ever going to provide any value for you. So anyway, that's the end of the video. That's all I have to say today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will check you guys out on the next one.